everyone. I'm John Lane, principal here at Ravenna High School, and I just want to say thank you for being here tonight to hear this important message. I'd like to take this opportunity to introduce all of you to two people who, in November of 2022, lost their only child. James Timothy Woods was an innocent 17-year-old high school student that fell victim to a cybercrime and lost his life in the process. Since his passing, Tamia and Timothy Woods have started a foundation in his name with the focus of informing and teaching parents and children about this relatively new evil that is attacking our youth today. They've already done multiple news interviews, they've had speaking engagements, and they've donated clothing to the track and field and cross-country teams that their son participated on. Their goal is to have a place that can provide betterment for our youth, and it starts with awareness and education, and that is the Do It for James Foundation. At this time, please welcome Tamia and Timothy Woods.
Hello, everyone. Like he said, my name is Timothy Woods. This is my wife, Tamia Woods. Her and I got together in about 2004 and started our family. 2005, we gave birth to a beautiful baby boy, James Timothy Woods. I gave him my name, sort of. I took the first name, middle name, and switched them. But he was our baby. Turns out, as time went by, we found out that he was going to be the only child that we could conceive. So from that moment forward, we already knew we wanted to give him the best life possible. But knowing that he was going to be the only child, it just increased that thought in our minds. So as the years go by, we're raising them, teaching them all the little things about growing up as a child, trying to provide for him the best life that he could have. We always made sure he had food, clothing. He got to hang out with his friends. We made sure he went to school. He didn't miss days. We were raising him to be an independent person. He used to wake up to his own alarm clocks, get dressed, go to school with minimal effort from us. As the years went by, all the little things that we taught him as a young child, he incorporated into his life as a younger teenager. He still went to school every day, didn't cause problems while there. He did his homework most of the time. We got to get on him sometimes for not doing it all the time. But for the most part, he was a good student. Shortly after his early teenage years, he got into sports, started playing basketball, running track, and he loved it. He got to go and hang out with his friends from school, make new friends, because that's what he did. He was a young child. He made friends everywhere he went. You could have a child who barely spoke. James would be like, "Don't worry about it. I'll do all the talking." And that's exactly what he did. He'd come up to whoever, just start talking. He'd have the whole conversation, and by the end of the conversation, the child who's not used to talking to others is fully engaging. He had a natural ability to get people to open up to him. Charisma or his wit, whatever it was, he was special. Then you add that he was always smiling, he was always happy. He was a joy to be around. People loved him. So when he started doing sports, he met new people from different schools that became his friends. He met new coaches, teachers, different people from everywhere. He loved it. He wanted to get better at sports, mainly track. Track was his baby. He ran track and didn't like how he placed. So he vowed to get faster. How did he do that? He started running around the neighborhood. He put his headphones on, just music blasting, out running. It didn't matter if it was 60 degrees out or 100. He was out there in sweatpants. He had his shorts on with the tights under him, headphones, just a running, and still had a smile on his face. He'd be running through the neighborhood, waving at the neighbors as he passed their houses. They all recognized him. They waved back. Big old smile on his face as he goes by. People would always tell us how mannerable he was, how respectful he was, how he's always smiling, big, bright smile. It was probably his best quality. He stopped to talk to a few of them. Didn't know who they were most of the time, just people in the neighborhood. He didn't care if you were of one color or another. He didn't care if you were old, young. Didn't matter to him, not one bit. Cross country, he'd run. He didn't like it much, but he knew that by doing cross country, it'd help his endurance better for when he did the hurdles for the 300s. Outdoor season was his best time. He also did indoor track. He just loved to run all year round. And it was his choice. His mom and I, we got together and then we sat him down and we told him, you have a choice to either get a job or do 2 sports. He chose to do the 2 sports. And just to add an extra cherry on top, he put in an extra cross country into it. So he was doing cross country, then it transitioned over to indoor track. Then it transitioned over to outdoor track. And then after that ended, he was still running all throughout the summer. It was just what he wanted to do. And we had no problem with it. We gave him a choice. He made his choice. He stuck with it. We didn't have to push him. And we were proud of him. He made a decision and stuck with it. A lot of times, I'd come home from work. He's in the basement. He's playing with his friends. You know, you can hear them on the headsets when they're on Xbox Live, or if they're just having a personal conversation on the phone. Large groups of them, just a whole bunch of kids just yelling and screaming and laughing and having a good time. We didn't mind. That's what kids do. We expect them to enjoy themselves, hang out with their friends, you know, make new bonds. Some of them, who knows, they could still be friends 30 years from now. I still have people that I'm friends with from 30 years ago. I still have a couple I was friends with from 40 years ago. I don't know if you can tell I'm that old. But James, he, like I said, everyone loved him. He spent his time with his friends. They're driving around, you know, after practice. They'll go get food to eat. You can hear the music blasting in the car. They're all singing and dancing and having a good time, legally. And, you know, it was good to see, because he was the only child. So we figured that he might have a problem, you know, attaching to people, building bonds and friendships and whatnot, because it was just her and I, him, and we've always had a dog or two. The dogs, they were his babies. He'd walk the dogs, he'd play with the dogs. Sometimes he had to clean up after the dogs, but he loved them. He treated them like they were his brothers and sisters. But James, everyone loved him. Hey, James, you coming to this? You coming to that? Yep, he's there. So, as the time goes by, we get to present times. To me and I, we're in a bowling league. So every Friday night, we go bowling. Sometimes, you know, it's rare, James would go with us, but most times he didn't. He's 17 years old. He could stay home by himself. He's pretty much grown. So This one particular night, November 18th, we talk to him. We say, hey, all right, we're about to leave, blah, 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 blah. We get in the car. We drive off to bowling. James is at home playing video games online like usual. We get done bowling, come home, talk to James. Talk to James, and, nothing out of the norm. We laugh, joke with him, give him food to eat, just a normal Friday night. We retire, go to sleep for the night. I wake up first thing in the morning because I have to be to work at about 5 a.m. I come down the steps to go to work at 4:30 in the morning or so. James is already awake, wide awake, already dressed in new clothes and everything. So I knew he took a shower, brushed his teeth, got his stuff ready, because he had somewhere to be Saturday morning. Him and his mom were going to a fair to look at colleges. He was preparing for his future. So I talked to him before I went to work for about a good 20 minutes or so. And I was telling him, hey, take it all in. Enjoy yourself. Listen to what all these different places have to offer. Whatever choice you make, we're fine with it. Just make one. I even convinced him to look into joining a fraternity. I give him a high five, and I say, enjoy the day, and I go to work. I'm at work. He's with his mom. Life is good. I get off of work at about 6 o'clock or so, p.m. Drive home. I stop at the gas station. Then I come home ready to play video games with my friends, because that's what I do. I play video games just like he does. I pull up into my driveway, and I notice a light is on in the house in the area where a light usually isn't on. I walk into the house, the dogs greet me. Nothing unusual. Every time someone comes into the house, they always come up to say hi. I go upstairs to where the light is, open the door, and I see my son sleep on the floor. It's like, that's unusual. Okay. I take 2 steps into the room, and I could see that my son isn't asleep. My heart instantly sank. November 19th became the hardest, worst, most terrible day of my life. I saw my son laying on the floor lifeless. I crumbled to the floor, crawled over to him, and cried. I had to be the person to find my son unalived. The first thing I did was grab my phone, because since I was the one who found him, that means there is someone else who didn't know what I had just found. I had to call his mother, my wife, and tell her that the only child that we could ever produce is no longer among us. This was the hardest thing I have ever had to do. I've done a lot of hard things throughout my life, but to make that one phone call that no one ever wants to make to a loved one, it hurt the most.
In less than 12 hours, we found out that our son became victim of sextortion. With the help of police, we found out that our son received 200 messages in 19 and a half hours. 200 messages of them telling him he was worthless, he was horrible, he would be labeled a pedophile, that they would hurt his parents, that they'll never have a future, that he might as well end it now. They told him worse things than what I just spoke now. And every day that we told our son that we loved him, every day we told him the world was his, he just had to try. Every day we gave him hugs. We bought him food, and he would say thank you. I'm like, James, we have to feed you. He said, still thank you. Everything we built into our son was taken away in 19 and a half hours. And we had to find out something called sextortion that we never knew about. Something that we couldn't prepare our child because we were given a hand where we had to be blind and find out about sextortion after our son's death. We taught our child not to do drugs, not to bully, to treat everyone with respect no matter what they look like or what they believed in. We told our child, don't drink. We gave him the tools he needed to succeed, and that was wiped away from evil, evil people across seas. We're standing here today because we were afraid and are afraid for these children. They have easy access to our children, and we have to be able to teach our children and speak to our children and guide them on what to do if they ever were put in the predicament of James, because they all represent James. They all do. And we truly don't believe in taking social media away because it's never going to go. And what happens when he or she turns 18? What are you going to do then? What will you do when your child goes to college? There was a state representative, and his child took his own life because of sextortion. He was 19. What do you say then? You have to give your children the tools that they need to fight these evil, evil people, because it's an organized crime and they're taking turns on our kids just like how they did on my son. Tim has to wake up every day and realize that his son is no longer here. I have to go to the grocery store and have the horrible reality that I can't buy my son Pop-Tarts. I just want to buy my son Pop-Tarts one last time. So we're here and we beg of you to talk to your children, to educate yourselves, and to educate them on sextortion. So we have questions for you. One is very obvious. By the show of hands, who has children? Raise your hand if your children are still under your care. How many of you tell your kid you love them every day? There's a video of me, James running. I'm screaming and hollering, "Go James, go baby!" as he's jumping the hurdles. I attend every sport event that I could, and if I couldn't, I was on that phone. I was on FaceTime. Tim, if he couldn't make it, he was on that phone. who attends extracurricular activities for their kids? Who strives to provide their children with greatness to put them on paths for them to succeed? I got another question. It's not on here. By the show of hands, who thinks that their child would come to them if they ever were put in the predicament that James was put in? If you were to tell me that Tim and I would be standing in front of you today to tell you that we did not have a kid in the physical, and that we were warning you about sextortion, and that how our child didn't come to us in his time of need, I would call you a liar straight to your face. We always had James back. We told him if he ever needed anything, that we had his back. No matter what. That doesn't exempt him from punishment. But we're going to be there for you. We told him that. We proved it to him. And they lied and lied to him and pushed it in him and pushed him in him again to make him think that we would never be there for him. They drive on isolation. They drive on us not being able to talk and speak out and warn others. Because you know what? If I didn't warn you, if I didn't warn you, if I didn't warn you, guess what? They got another victim. And it doesn't matter how much money they get from you. We did a activity with the kids earlier today. And we had them pull out their calendar or the calculator or the Google and tell us the translation of currency from US dollar to Nigeria, right? $100. $100 to us is $46,000 to them. They will do whatever they can to get our money. And it doesn't matter if they have people standing in front of you crying, vulnerable. They're going after the next family. So, a lot of these things we do, even today we still struggle. But this is advice and what we feel like you should do.
Number 1 at the top says, it is not your fault. Do not blame yourself. It is hard to protect our children from what we do not know. And that's why we're here right now. Our whole lives with James, we've taught him, like she said earlier, don't do drugs, drink, all the reckless things that kids could potentially do. Not knowing about sextortion, we didn't know anything about it. So since we didn't know anything about it, it was one of the things that he was able to fall victim to. Because that's what he is, a victim. They preyed on an underage person illegally. Give your child grace. They are human and curious. We must guide and teach them what is okay and what is not. That's our jobs as parents. We talk to our kids. We tell them, hey, this is right, this is wrong. We try to tell them why as best we can. We don't have all the answers, but we do the best we can because we love them. I'm sure all of you love your children, or else you wouldn't be here right now. Be open to discussion. Things are changing and are different from when we were children. You know, we're of a certain age now to where we can look back and remember a time when we didn't have the internet to where we could connect to the world. You know, to know what was going on, you had to get on your bike or your scooter and ride around the block to Johnny's house or to Susie's house. Now everybody just picks up their phone. They have access to everybody from other states, other continents. It doesn't matter. The internet, one of the greatest inventions ever, but also it led to a lot of bad things. Teach kids how to spot a spammer. Look for broken language, misspelled words, etc., etc. Now, even I have problems with computers sometimes, you know, with spam and phishing and all that other stuff, but I can still see that sometimes it looks wrong. Broken language. You know, all the LOLs and KITs and, you know, talk to you laters and all that stuff. It's how kids talk. It's here to stay. It's not going to ever change. I'm pretty sure you guys can remember when you were younger, your parents asked you why you was using a certain word a certain way. It happens every generation. Lastly on the list, let's learn with and educate our children. Listening to what we had to say, hopefully you could take that home to your children. Help guide them in the right direction. You know, hopefully they haven't been through any of this yet. If they have, more power for them for still being here. You have to be willing to talk to your children about the hard conversations to make sure that they get to talk to their kids about theirs. The number one thing you need is knowledge. Because with knowledge, you can solve most problems. It might take a minute to solve them, but it can still happen.
So what we need kids to understand and what they should know is that they are targeting our children as young as 10 years old. We talked to the FBI and they said 2 out of 3 kids will show their picture of themselves in their private parts. 2 out of 3, and as young as 10. In 5 years, every child will have done this, and the youngest will be 8 years old. We have to not judge our children as much as we can. Sometimes we look at them a little cross-eyed, and that's fine. But this is their life. And I think sometimes it's hard for us to understand because we grew up on Polaroids. And even if someone found a picture that we have accidentally did, it's one picture and you can rip it up. Pictures are now on phones, and one click is to everybody. We have to teach them how to act accordingly online and what not to do. These predators are targeting our children via social media. So a lot of, if you heard our story, they targeted James through Instagram, but they do Google Meets, Xbox, TikTok, Snapchat,
Twitter, Discord,
Rhetoric, any social media app that has a DM. That's how they get to them. And they start off being nice and sweet, and they learn to get your children's trust. They often come off as someone close to their age.
Well, in James's case, You know, like it says, the predators are targeting our children via social media. A young woman, she had to be between 19, 20, 21 at the oldest. But a young woman contacted James in his DMs on Instagram. She was a very attractive woman. Now, I remember when I was 17 years old. When a beautiful woman ever talked to me, I was extremely happy. Now, I'm sure all of you guys in the audience can remember when you were 17 and how you acted when a beautiful woman was in your presence or spoke to you.
Are men? Are they?
James, he liked what he saw. This woman, through social media, Instagram, Messenger, struck up a conversation with him. He enjoyed the conversation. The conversation turned slightly sexual. Then it got to the point where she said flat out, "Do you want to see my boobs?" He said yes. No hesitation. I don't blame him. I mean, I probably would have looked too. After that, she asked if he wanted to see the other area also. He said yes. There she is, fully uncovered on the Instagram Messenger live feed.
Not live, it's video. Live
Video,
is for
live
purpose.
video, whatever
Yeah.
it is. I'm old, excuse me. But
This is not catfish. This is not pictures anymore. They're calling. And it's a possibility it may be human trafficking involved. So we have to be aware that it's just not picture switched. Maybe they're making these kids believe that they really have an interaction. Well, they are having an interaction.
a serious interest.
But a serious interest. It's not just pictures anymore. Some still are, but a lot aren't. And a lot of people say, well, why don't they just block them, right? But when we think about spam, when the spam calls us, we block one number, what they do? They call from another number. And that's the same thing that they're doing with these kids. If they block that one, they start another account, attack them again. We have to make sure that the kids know that they're not a victim, that they won't be in trouble if we find their picture online and they're reported to the police. We have resources to get these pictures down and to get them off of the internet. But the kids need to know that they are not the problem, that these evil, evil people are, and that they're the victim. We take it personally because they took our legacy. At the end of the day, they took what was ours. But we worked so hard. I always said, Tim was on third shift, I was on first shift, James was on second. We raised our child and we did everything that we possibly could do to make him the beautiful young man he was. And they took him away. And they wanted us to put our tail between our legs and go sit in the corner and cry. I'm going to cry, but I'm going to keep raising awareness and keep telling you all how important this is, that we need to stand in front and center and protect our children through their mistakes so that our kids can be there and you can see them grow and have children of their own and a family of their own, something that we cannot do. But I refuse to sit here and let someone bully me and try to chastise me and extort us like they did and think that I'm going to sit and be quiet. You got the wrong parents. You have the wrong parents. So We came up with tip cards. If your child was in high school, then they got this tip card today. It's very durable. You can't rip it. And it tells them steps on if they were ever to become a victim of sextortion. James' last Google search was how to get an Instagram page shut down. He didn't know where to go. He didn't know who to go to. And these people told him he had nobody. So we're hoping that if the kid has this in their pocket, in their purse, their back pocket, their book bag, that they will be able to hopefully remember this card. Because they can step away from the phone that they're being harassed in, and they will remember what to do. And they will still be here because we need them. They are our future. They are important. And we are just trying to give you all the tools that we wish we had the pleasure of working James through. We don't have that. But one thing we do have is the knowledge now to tell you all about sextortion so that you can have that conversation with your child. We're going to leave off with questions. We want to be as authentic as possible and answer whatever questions that we can. Does anyone have any questions today?
Thank you. No.
No.
He, a lot of times, James is just like I am. He plays video games, hangs out with his friends and whatnot. So a lot of times I was online with him and his friends, playing the same games with him. I'd go down to his room, I'd have my joystick, he'd sit there with his, he'd have his headset on, you could hear the kids in the background. Everyone's having a good time. No one ever picked on him, tried to bully him. Everybody liked him. He didn't have not one enemy. I knew a lot of his friends. I thought they were all cool people. If I was younger, I probably would have been hanging out with them, like one of them. But there was never any signs. There was nothing. All this happened in one specific night.
Yeah, 20 hours. 20 hours. And that's what that's their goal. Like, they're professionals, they're con artists, and they are there to happen fast and then attack them fast and isolate them and make them think they have nothing.
And is there anything from your own experience, your awful nightmare that you're going through and have been going through, that you could say to yourself, is there something I can tell them? You know how kids are. I see it in my granddaughter, I see it in my grandson. They don't listen to you when you talk to them. Is there anything that you maybe think of? And probably not. I think I'm just reaching.
Oh, you're
Well,
right.
no, you're not reaching.
Where
Well,
say,
you could,
I mean, it's awful. I'm often told that I'm too blunt, I'm too,
No.
no, because
and I
sometimes you have to be extremely blunt, because as kids, I remember when I was a child, a lot of times I didn't listen. Sometimes you just have to physically, well, not physically, but sometimes you have to beat it in and say, hey, this is what it is. When we sugarcoat things, it loses some of the meaning. And
I think what I was trying to ask, is it wrong to say exactly what they're doing?
No.
Our unfortunate circumstance, we just didn't know. And I think that would make a difference. I will say this, being completely vulnerable, like the last conversation I had with James, I told him how proud I was of him, and that he was amazing. There God did not allow me to go down that road. And when I did, he pushed me towards the text messages that we had and the conversations and the memories that we had. I don't think that, I mean, we have flaws as parents, but I just don't think that there was anything that we could have done besides having the knowledge that would have been able to make the difference.
Tiff?
Okay, I have two questions. So, if all social media was cut down, do you think this problem would be solved forever? Like no more Facebook, no more Instagram, and no more social media?
Well, before you get to your second question, social media is not going anywhere. It's too much money involved in it for the government to just shut it down. So it's here to stay.
And it was always bad people. It's the accessibility now. They can get to people a lot easier. But there were always people who robbed you for money or extorted or pedophiles. They all have always been there, but it's at all high.
It's easier for criminals now because they can reach more people in a smaller time span.
Yeah. And they'll, like the one victim in Streetsboro, that was the 8th grader, they got to him in iMessage. So it wasn't a social media app, it was the iMessages. They got his phone number.
Yeah, I wish they could create something that rules over all of these medias, social, whatever you want to call it. I think there should be something that just blinks. If it looks bad, it blinks, it's gone. I mean, the very first second it's something, if they can do all this, why can't they create something that protects?
And that's why we have to hold them accountable, because if I call you stupid on Facebook and you put me in jail for 30 days, why didn't you shut down something when my son said he was going to kill himself? So.
Did he say that?
Yes.
Yes. They egged him on. He said it. It was back and forth banter. But yes, they said it. And he said it.
And would it be okay if I stand up for myself and tell everybody what I told you this morning, this earlier, about my experience with this? I'm not afraid to share with mine because I am a victim of sextortion. And once I read about them, I knew, like, oh my God, this is a real thing. I thought this would just happen to me. So, this morning, well, this afternoon, whatever it was, I had the courage to stand up for myself. And I came to Tim in Tampa to tell him how I felt. I was scared to death. I didn't know what they would have said. So, from my personal experience, I would encourage you to be there for your children.
It started out very innocent.
Mhm.
Someone tried to contact her through Instagram, Facebook, and then they started asking for pictures of her private parts. And when she said no, then they started threatening her. So she didn't know what to do. She did what they asked. She didn't know how to come to me till like 1:30 in the morning. She said, Mom. The first thing I did was call the police.
So the first thing you did is get grandparents.
Asked grandparents, we called the police, we took the report. They tried to shut it down. They blocked her phone. So like you said, they found another way to get a hold of her. And it was an older guy that was a pedophile in Australia, pretending to be an 18-year-old person,
It was 14.
trying to get a hold of a 13-year-old. It's been a long
Yeah.
and I guess I blocked it for so long.
Mhm.
And it's hard. I mean,
Because you try to blame yourself, like, oh, why did I do this? Or what could I have done differently? Or could I have said something differently? And we cannot put on ourselves the evil that they did.
told her, no matter what happens in life, you have parents you can go to. I was sexually assaulted as a child. I had no one to go to. No one believed me, whatever. When it finally came out, I didn't want to hear, I'm sorry. I said, where were you when it happened? But she's got more courage than I could ever have in her.
Yeah, she's strong. And we have to realize, like, this happens. They go after girls because they're pedophiles, or they want pictures to sell to other pedophiles so that they can get more money. They go after boys for money. They know in a drop of a hat that they can get this picture, start threatening them, and boys are going to come up with money because they want it to go away. They want it to go away. So boys will get the money for you, girls will get products so that they can sell it to other pedophiles. They really are evil people. Thank you. Yes, ma'am.
You talked about the exchange rate
Mhm.
for the kids today. Is Nigeria where this all,
Well,
your son? I'm just wondering.
it's in that area of the world. Now, specifically where, they don't know or they're not saying, but the Ivory Coast, Nigeria, around that area is where they believe our son was attacked from.
Yeah. So the people in our son, they said Ivory Coast for James, but Nigeria is for other victims that have committed suicide. And imagine a call center, and they all have a cubicle, and they all attack your kid. Then there's people in America that take the money, collect the money, wash it, and send it over to them.
One big organization. A heartless organization. Because they don't care who they hurt. All they want is money. Whether you're a boy or a girl, they get what they want, but the end result is money.
They don't care about us, who they hurt, or if that person needs mental therapy afterwards. They don't care. Yes, ma'am.
I'm hoping your conversation with the kids today, sparked, even on a personal basis with each other,
Mm-hmm.
not to be doing these kind of things. My son's told me things of other students, sharing things, and it's not this level, but it's getting that knowledge across to them. When it's out there, it's out there.
Yeah, I hope it does. I hope it does. And if not, we're not. Do it for James. We're not going anywhere. We'll be here every single year talking to the kids over and over because we know we got to tell them more than one time.
We will say, though, when we were here earlier, we talked to two different groups of children with the same message. But the whole time, they all were focused and listening. So if they retain the information or how much they retain is questionable, we never know until times happen to where what was told has to be put to use. But we can assure you that all of your children were paying attention to what we had to say today.
And we do know they do listen. They might still send the picture. Like in one instance, someone still sent it. But as soon as they started, he sent money, but then they started going really aggressive. He stopped and remembered James' story. So it warms my heart that he remembered James' story, so he stopped and didn't go down that rabbit hole. So I hope they listen. I do think they'll still probably do it, but hopefully they remember the story and they won't do something harmful to themselves, and they'll speak up for themselves and start to have an open communication and start warning each other about what other people are doing. Yes.
Have you heard of anyone using the Take It Down app? I know that I read about it this last week, I think it was. It's very new.
Mm-hmm.
Have you reached anybody that has used it?
So far, we just know the FBI had told us about it. We have a meeting with Ohio Internet Crimes Against Children next month, and I think they'll go through and tell us a little bit more about it. I haven't heard of anyone personally using it, but the FBI has, of course, and they said it's a really, really, really good app, and it works. Yes.
So just from what you guys are saying, they reached out to your son to get money is what they're going for. Is there a prominent way that they're getting that money? I mean, you obviously didn't mail it to them.
Right.
Correct. So there's a number of ways they can do this. If you have a debit card or whatever, you could get a weird transaction that pops up on your card and you're wondering, hey, where did this come from? And your son or daughter, whoever, might say, I don't know. But then you call the bank and they say, yeah, somebody overseas, charged your card $100. Or you could have, what's that
Get
card
Cash
called?
App or...
Well, yeah,
Well,
Cash App and
in-
stuff like that. But
In James' situation, he didn't use his debit card because he didn't want us to find out. He had all cash, and they instructed him to go buy an iTunes gift card, and then they video called him and had him scratch off the gift card so
they
that
could
we
get the
couldn't have
numbers.
a picture of the card number to track him back. They also, when they tried to extort us, they gave me and Tim and I, their Cash App and their Apple Pay. I don't know if maybe you know how some people say my Cash App was hacked or different things like that. Maybe they're doing that. And then lastly, Tim's card got a transaction. So we don't think that James gave them the debit card, but because they were able to tap in and really know his name and all this other stuff he was giving them, with Tim's name and James' name being reversed, I think they found that, and it was a fraud alert on Tim's checking account. Now, it could have been a coincidence. I don't think so. You don't try to get money the
I don't
day
believe
our
it was a
son
coincidence.
died.
it was too soon.
It was
wasn't a
too
coincidence.
soon, but those are the different ways that they attacked us.
What were they attacking you over?
The same thing.
Same thing.
So
Mhm.
our
Okay.
son, he's already been removed from the house and whatnot, and we're sitting there wondering what's going on. I pull up the phone records, find a number that looks suspicious. We call the number, and it turns out it's the people who was terrorizing our child. They started telling us, hey, they sent us pictures and everything. We're going to start sending this out. You need to pay us. As you can see, we're not paying you nothing. We'd rather you come knock on our door and ask for it.
We didn't let them know that he had passed because we didn't want them to shut everything down so that they didn't get tracked. I don't know how we was thinking that clearly. But that's what we were doing in our instance. They sent a picture to his friends. So how they get leads is they screenshot the Instagram friends, and then they take a couple of the Instagram friends, and they sent pictures of James' private parts to them and said, if you don't send us money, this is what we'll do to him. And then they use the other section of leads for new victims. Any other questions? Yes.
I heard you guys said you were interacting after the fact.
Mhm.
You guys catch questions.
No.
No.
No, they're still over in Africa. We don't have allyship with them, and we're still trying to figure out exactly who they are. They just know where it is, and they know someone in America's taking the money. But as you know, like the FBI is not going to tell us 100% of everything until the case is, they capture somebody. But that's as far as what we know about the case. Yes.
Did you guys ever monitor his social media accounts or anything, like his messages or anything like that?
In a sense.
Yes and no. So, every now and then she'd pick his phone up, and I'm like, put his phone down. There's nothing on there that you need to see or whatever. And she'd go through it anyway because she's a mom and she cares about her child. So I just sit there and I'm looking, and all the stuff that's on his phone is what you would expect from a young kid. Lots of laughing, joking, games and whatnot. There was nothing out of the ordinary. All the stuff that he had, a lot of it was the same stuff I have on mine.
And we have to just be, it's hard for us as parents, especially during that transition phase. Well, James was 17 and a half, and he's, a senior and about to go to college. I can't check his phone every day. I wouldn't, yeah.
Well, so that's why I asked.
Oh, yeah, 12, yes. Yes.
Yep, have at it.
No, 12, yes, but you run into that transition phase where you have to give them trust and try to have an open communication with your kids. And at 17 and a half, you're just at that awkward stage. And so we weren't able to really check his phone. I shouldn't say we were able, but we just didn't. He was very open. That's why we were able to find out in less than 12 hours what happened to him. We had his password. It was no hiding. But it's that transition phase. But even if someone checked their phone every day, if they checked their kid's phone every day, that was 20 hours.
He was gonna slide in and.
Yeah. Any other questions?
Just if you have them, can I have 4 cards to give to 4 kids?
Yes.
Yeah.
Principal, is right out the, Yeah, you're welcome.
Anyone else? We're here for you guys.
Yeah, we're here for y'all. Yes.
I have just a comment that I hadn't really been in this way. One of the stats that I read last week was that there were over 900,000 queries on Google search for how to take down their Instagram accounts. Over 900,000.
So imagine who's not speaking up. And that's why we really are talking to the kids too. Like, we have to talk to them, because even if you talk, we can educate you guys, but James never came to no one. We have to talk to the kids. We don't want them to ever be in a position that James was in his last hours of life.
And we don't want you guys sometime in the future be standing on the stage like we are right now, talking to a group of people about the saddest day of your life.
Yeah. I know it sounds really simple and stupid, but I want y'all to be able to buy Pop-Tarts. I really do. I took that for granted. I did. And we'll continue, we have our website on the brochures and different things. We'll continue to raise awareness. We will continue to find out different things, different tools, different education. We are continuing to do so. We'll also have an annual walk run that we're doing on August 5th. We'll make sure Principal Lane has that information. We encourage people to come out. It'd be $35 to join, but it's raising money for the cause. We're planning on giving away over $10,000 in scholarships to high school and college students. We'll have Homeland Security there, counselors there. After the walk run, we will have food, all kinds of different things to help bring the move on and continue James' legacy, but also to raise awareness, encourage communication between children and a trustworthy adult, and also make sure that everybody knows you have options. One thing that we made sure that the kids knew before we left, we asked them what number to dial if it was an emergency. And the number 2 question was what number to dial if you ever are thinking of harming yourself. Do y'all know that number? 988.
988.
Yes.
Is there any way that we, like, if we go on your website and maybe get some information about making a donation to your, is that how we would do it, is going on the website?
Yes.
Yes, you can make a regular donation, or you can buy merchandise, and all the proceeds go back into the foundation as well.
Here's a silly question, I don't mean it.
No silly questions.
You don't want to say that.
No.
What was James' favorite food and what was his favorite color?
Man. So,
Spaghetti.
yeah, spaghetti was number 1 on the food.
Spaghetti.
As part of, he loved dinner was spaghetti, breakfast was the Pop-Tarts.
Yes.
And his snacks, he had a favorite bag of chips that she would always buy him.
Barbecue chips, Lay's,
The Southern
Southern Heat.
Southern Heat, yeah.
And what was his favorite Pop-Tart?
Oh man, the cinnamon brown sugar.
Brown sugar.
Yeah, they're nice. I like them.
Oh man, if one of the kids, if they told me their favorite Pop-Tart was brown sugar, I'm buying. His favorite color changed,
All the time.
like the day of the week. So
Yeah, one week it'll be like a lime green, then the next week it'll be a black.
purple.
So
Job well done, Mom and Dad.
Thank
it
you.
was like, yeah.
Thank you.
And thank you for all that you're doing.
You're welcome. You're welcome.
Anyone else? We're here for you guys.
I just want to, before we start to wrap up, I just want to share with everybody, as it was discussed, every high school student that was at school today heard this message. They heard it. And thank you, everyone, for coming. And the cards that Mrs. Woods was talking about, we have them for you on the way out, and all the students at school today got those as well. Thank you.
And we thank you guys for coming to listen.
Yes, thank you.